Good morning good morning and welcome in everyone. I know we did an update and it'll probably get overshadowed from about an hour and a half ago or so, but there was something I really wanted to talk about. Yes, we looked at the bearish possibility if we got rejected, but there's also something we need to remember that could actually play in our favor here, assuming we don't give it back. So the reason why I think this is important to at least discuss, even though we did get that what I consider a brutal rejection early on at 225, and that's the short-term intermediate resistance before 229, and then obviously before the pattern resistance at 237. Maybe not obviously if you haven't seen it, but that's something that becomes a big issue if we were to break down. But we also need to look at it from the positive perspective. Yes, you could have quite a fall if you fell through here, but I really think we could line it up like this. And we're in a golden cross though right now. So one thing we need to not forget, even if we're bearish, even if we start to fall overtly bearish, remember, you can't completely fall through. And I thought it was very important for me to come back to talk the bullish side of this now. So yeah, the bearish video will probably not get as much views by the bearish headline of a bearish or a brutal rejection, and then the possibility of a 25% drop. But what if we don't correct through the golden cross in the 4-hourly? What if we're able to hold here over this thinly traded weekend and we're able to push out with some kind of emphasis here? Because right now, the fact that even with the rejections, we've been able to hold through, and even when we came down, we did come down one time to like 211, came right back up. The 200-day right now is still at 214, 215 area. So we're still okay. Like, I want everybody to remember, we've taken one of two lucrative routes. And assuming we don't give it back after these rejections, we have a very big opportunity here for us to continue on. And at minimum, yes, we filled this shorter part, but to come up here at 247. And I think it's a very unique way of looking at this, but it's so freaking true. So if we start looking at 247, it's like, okay, as the time comes on, we can line this in the pattern, and this would bring us to May 6th. That's 10 days. So if we could do this with structural support, and right now the 2-hourly at 214 is the lowest support that we're looking to hold. So we got about a 6-cent window. If we can maintain this volatility to the upside, we have a nice inverse head and shoulders form. We formed a beautiful right shoulder here in the short term. On the inverse right shoulder, we created its own inverse head and shoulders. It's mimicking the prior part of the pattern, which is generally a good sign. Now our next area we're gonna have to push past, and let's bring this over just a little bit. So it was 234 all week, you know, at least when it's coming through. Now, if we update it, it's about 234 still. This gets us into Monday. But if we push past there and then over the next week or so, week to 10 days, we start breaking out and push past 247. That's how we need to look at this. So let me do the intro, but I want everybody to not forget about the bullish part of this setup, because we are still extremely bullish within a short-term bear market setup after a beautiful bull market. So this could be our short consolidatory area to where now we're trying to get ourselves set up for the wave 5. Like, we've dumped through wave 4, and now we could just be going through the ABC correction leading into a wave 5 move up, but we just have to maintain a basic understanding of where this pattern separates. So make sure you watch the earlier update if you're watching this for the first time, just so you can see what happens in a bearish trajectory. But I want everybody to not forget about this golden cross and what could possibly be developing here in the 4-hour time frame. With that being said, good morning. 11:34 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on this Saturday, April 26th, 2025. I'm XRP Future Millionaire, and I reside in the great state of Michigan. I apologize, little stuffy, but nothing crazy. Just something we'll have to deal with the last couple days. But that's what I'm seeing right now. Let's not overlook this pattern yet and say, oh, you know, Tom, or even in my own understanding and my own delivery, let's not go right to the bearish. We talked bearish this morning, but let's make sure that we don't overlook this golden cross in the 4-hourly, because technically this would be a short-term pattern flip. This is where the short-term trajectory is trying to change for the better, but we have to follow through here. Yes, I'm not quite happy with the rejection at 225, but it's not the end of the world, let's face it. Now we've come back, and we're trying to maintain that 20-day, which we're going to want to try to hold in the 2-hourly. So 219, which we're holding on to right now. So we're trying right now. We're trying to maintain this bullish consolidation. We're trying to maintain this setup. If you look at the XRP market cap right now at 128 billion, up about 1 billion today, nothing major. But we're right at the squeeze point of the pivot layer. And if we could get past that, then we start moving up to that next range that gets you to near 145 billion. So if you can clear 129.29 and actually use this as a support structure instead of a resistance hindrance like we've been, you end up popping up, which it's pretty remarkable because you do pop up. And I'm pretty comfortable saying this. You would pop up into this next area we drew out, and that's about a 15% move, or about a $19 billion appreciation in the XRP market cap. So that's not something to scoff at. That's actually something of significance if we were able to do it. Now we start to look at the market, how it's participating for XRP. How are we looking if we compare ourselves to Bitcoin? Because we want to know how big of a chance we have at this golden cross playing out. Because we already know if it doesn't play out, it gets dicey. You've got $2.08 underneath, followed by about $2. And once that breaks, you've got about, in the updated formula, about $1.87 on the back end of a breakout attempt where you could back test it very nicely and still hold, or $1.77, which is the bottom part if it fell back in. I just don't think if it falls back to $1.77, we avoid a drop through to $1.50, most likely with how we've played out so far. So we're not going to want to have that catastrophic fall back through, because then it could open up the door for a drop as low as $1.50 on the fair value gap, all the way down to that support area that you could technically bring all the way down to like $1.35 if you were to break that fair value gap. And then when it would end up coming through to that area. So it's definitely something to pay attention to. It's definitely something to understand, but you also can't just skip past the 4-hour golden cross. And that's why I came back and did a second update. I knew if I split it up into two, they would get less views, but I wanted to give both perspectives here in their own little video, 10 minutes apiece, nothing major. If you are watching, make sure to hit that like button so YouTube does recommend these updates. It's very dicey trying to get your stuff out. YouTube's been having a lot of issues with its algorithm, and a lot of people are getting very discouraged. I'm not. If I lose viewers, or if I lose the views per video, I'm still going to come on. Eventually it'll work itself out. You just got to be very dedicated, very, very consistent, and very diligent and honest with your audience, and it works itself out. XRP Bitcoin pairing up 1.17% to the 2331 sat level. And it has been rotating down, but the good news is it's at the descending consolidation. In the most part here, the weekly, we still have a golden cross. The daily, we're starting to break down though. So this is our oh boy area. If we break past the 222 sat level, then all of a sudden we're starting to do a short-term reversal on the daily. 4 hourly is already completely corrected and being rejected on the 20-day. So that's something that does give a minor cause for concern, why we might start looking at the bearish route versus Bitcoin, but nothing major. It hasn't given away the weekly. The daily time frame hasn't technically reversed 100%. It's just fallen below a critical resistance. But we also have seen the opportunity of about a 20 to 25% correction if this doesn't exactly pan out. So I'm not worried. Either way, we're on top of it. We understand what's going on here. And if you want to see part of the Bitcoin, go to the update this morning. But I wanted this to be fully XRP. So my bottom line is here. If you're watching, that golden cross in the 4 hourly, as long as $2.19 holds, we're technically above that area. You fall back below that, then all of a sudden you have to rely on the $2.14 support area. If that breaks, you've got a small structure at $2.08, and then it becomes an issue. Then you've got one last line of defense at about that $1.90, $1.93 area, maybe all the way up to $1.98, depending on how you want to look at it. But $1.98 needs to hold. And then you start falling down a little bit. Then you talk about that drop down, and that's where it gets a little dicey if you come down into that area. Because then you talk about maybe $1.87 or $1.77. Then if that doesn't hold, then you talk fair value gaps and almost like a back test of this prior formation here, all the way down at $1.64 on the broadening wedge. But then we know if you lose a broadening wedge, it gets bad. So obviously there's two ways to look at this. And, before you think the sky's falling, at least let this golden cross play through. At least make sure that we're not going to have the last play up over the top. And make sure that before you jump off a cliff, that $2.14 at least is lost. Otherwise, It's a lot of unnecessary anguish. I know based on the comments, a lot of people are very disappointed with XRP. I wouldn't be. You know, in 2000, the last 4 years I've been doing this, we were under $1. Now we're over $2. So give yourself a little bit of grace. And mostly we're under 50 and 40 cents. So have a blessed day. Make sure to hit that like button. I'll catch you later.